It's so good to see you all. I'm going to let you guys come in, but it's so nice to see you. Thank you so much for joining me this evening and taking time out of your, I'm sure, busy days to be here. Hi, I see some familiar faces. Always good to see you all. Um, so if you wanted to put in the chat, let me know where you're from, where you're tuning in from. I'd love to know and see where you're coming from. And then also, I know we're going to obviously dive in, but if you want to let me know what the challenges are that you're facing with your animals, that would be great too, because that will help me to just kind of gear the webinar a little bit more towards your questions. So if you want to add that, that would be great. So hi, Andrew from Wisconsin, Kimberly from Phoenix, and another one from Houston, Nicole from Michigan, Ottawa, Minnesota, everywhere. You guys are coming from quite a ways. And oh, I got it from Chicago. Hello, neighbor. It's good to see you. And hi, Sheila, and hi, Jane. It's good to have you here. You guys, I know you. So it's always wonderful to see familiar faces as well. And Chris, because, doing webinars like that is always just a tad nerve-wracking to begin with. So it's always good to have familiar faces. So I'm just going to let a few more people in. And hi, Diane from Bloomingdale, and Sheila, Liz from Chicago, Melissa from Phoenix. All right, so mostly from the States, but a couple of people from Canada. Awesome, awesome. Again, I'm so excited to be here with you guys, and we have a lot to cover today. And Christy, you want to know more about hormone testing? Awesome. All right, cancer, sarcoma tumors, gulp. All right, very good, very good. Thanks for letting me know what's on your mind with your animals. All right, so there are still more people coming in, but I want to get started right away so that you guys have chance to get everything and then also go on with your evening. So let me share my screen here so that you can see my slides. All right, so are you guys ready? Yeah, yes in the chat if you are, because I certainly am. I'm all pumped because there's a lot of amazing information that I want to share with you, because it's just such an important time with animals being sicker and sicker and all these challenges that we're dealing with. So this really truly means the world to me that you're excited about learning more about helping your pets and having them thrive and also go deep, because this is going to be a very packed live event. So I recommend, grab a pen and a piece of paper to write down some of the concepts that will unlock your pet's true healing. And you already mentioned some of the symptoms that you have. So thank you for sharing, the challenges that you're dealing with. And I just want to encourage you to stay until the end, because I'm going to do a Q&A at the end where I'm going to be answering your questions. So then give me a thumbs up if you're ready to go and dive in. All right, awesome. Thank you. I'm happy to see how excited you guys are. All right, so then I want to talk to you about gut health and reestablishing cellular vitality. So I'm Dr. Odette Suter, for those who don't know me. Many of you have already seen me and know me because I've lectured and I've taught through video, through Zooms and other places. And I like to talk about topics like this, gut-related problems, leaky gut, and the microbiome in particular, of course, which is the subject today. You're going to be blown away by what I'll be sharing with you today, literally, because you're going to hear about the gut and also the effects on their entire body. But first, who is this for? Those of you who have pets who are suffering and you don't know why, and you've done everything. Maybe you've changed their diets, you've tried different probiotics and other gut healing protocols, and your pets are still not feeling well. You've also probably stayed up all night trying to find answers, but you just don't seem to be able to figure out how to get rid of their chronic vomiting, their diarrhea, and their reflux. And maybe they're plagued by ear infection, never-ending itchiness, low energy. This is really who this is for today. And so I'm excited about this because I've been teaching this to pet parents all around the world for many years. And I'm going to uncover some of that faulty logic that is causing the current medicine to not really be that helpful for the animals anymore, and is causing that chronic epidemic of gut issues and gut related diseases that's causing so much suffering, for your dogs and your cats, but also for yourselves, their human family. So this is who this is for today. And I get so excited about this because there is a solution to all of this, and there's a reason why your pets aren't improving in their health. So I want to dive right in and talk to you about that and what you can do to heal their bodies, their guts, and also reestablish whole body cellular vitality. So did you know that the most powerful thing that you can do for your pets is to fix the gut and establish a good microbiome? We're conditioned to really think of specific organs, specific symptoms, and not really looking at the whole of what's going on in the body. That is kind of a little bit of the faulty logic that we have, and I'll go into that a little bit more. Even if your pets aren't having any symptoms of the GI tract, and you may be thinking that it can't be a gut issue, pretty much everything that's happening in the system is gut related. So today we're going to look at the key principles of healing that most pet parents and also veterinarians oftentimes overlook and don't know about. And this is the reason why you may have a supplement graveyard, and why your animals aren't healing the way you want. And so we want to make sure that we really kind of talk about all of this. And so today I'm going to also talk to you about my strategy that will help to revolutionize how we approach pets healing and how we restore their gut, because that's what's necessary for overall body function. And just a little bit about me here. I'm Dr. Odette Suter, as I mentioned already, and I consider myself a truly holistic veterinarian. I have been in this field for over 30 years, and I have helped hundreds of pet parents around the world really maximize their pet's health and extend their lifespan. But it didn't come easy, let me tell you. I had to learn the hard way. After I graduated from vet school, I naively figured, well, it probably would take me about 10 years to really get to be the veterinarian that I envisioned myself to be. Well, little did I know that the learning was actually going to be very intensely personal, and it really put me through the ringer in ways that I could absolutely not have imagined. And, if I had known ahead of time, who knows, maybe I wouldn't be here. But in any case, it really put me through the ringer, and I battled through 2 debilitating chronic diseases that most people never recover from. And my healing journey was really long and very challenging. And during that time, my couch really became my best friend because I could barely move. I just had no energy. And during that time, I learned a lot. It was really a blessing because it made me question everything in life and everything that I knew about healing. And it really turned my life around, and also how I treat my animal patients and how I approach health. So I discovered what it really takes to truly heal, after long hours and hundreds of, thousands of dollars. I finally discovered a strategy that not only cured me and allowed me to express myself and be happy and dance, but it also helped me to help all of these poor animal patients of mine who were tortured for years, like this dog here who had allergies. And so today I want to talk to you about the missing piece in the healing process. And that is the gut and gut related issues and the microbiome. Emerging research has really brought up all of that information and the importance of gut health. And for me, the turning point really came when I was treating a German Shepherd who had had diarrhea and was not feeling well, a lot of anxiety, no energy, was overweight. He had really poor stool consistency. And after 2 years of trying to heal their dog, I did a fecal transplant on him. And within just a few days, his poop went from like this liquidy cow pie to perfectly formed poop. And not only that, his energy level came back, his anxiety vanished, and he also decreased in his weight. He lost some weight, and it just had a huge impact on his entire body. So, what type of drug or supplement have you ever seen do all of this, right? Take care of all of these things all at the same time. So you may be thinking, well, your animals don't really have any gut issues, so this isn't really for me. Or if you're newer to having a pet who has gut issues or any other types of issues, and you've kind of been thrown into the deep end and are trying to fix all of these issues, you may be asking, well, why isn't my vet telling me this? And if you're one of those pet parents who has stayed up all night, studying, researching things to find a solution, you may be thinking, well, I know all of this already. But I ask you, or I invite you to stay with me and take in this information, because I'm going to really bring about the knowledge of health from a whole different perspective. Because what I'm about to share with you isn't about a magic pill or some other kind of snake oil. This is for real. I want to show you that there is hope, and I want to start with a couple success stories right off the bat, because I know that it can be very difficult and heartbreaking, this whole health journey that you have with your pets. So this here is Lulu. She came to me with diarrhea and vomiting and all sorts of stomach discomfort. She was whining, she was lethargic, had to go out at night. She just wasn't feeling well. But within just a few months, we were able to turn this around for her, and she's now in perfect health. And of course, her dad, Michael, is so happy. And then this here is Jill. She has two dogs that were suffering from issues. One of them had fly snapping seizures, and she was going back and forth to specialist veterinarians, and it just wasn't getting any better. And so we started working together and implementing the strategy that I will be sharing with you in just a little bit. And her dog, particularly the one with the seizures, he was very depressed. He wasn't wagging his tail. He was very unhappy, just not feeling good, and also anxious. And he basically went to being a happy dog, wagging his tail all the time, and just, full of energy. So that is all possible for you and your animals. And here are a couple more. And this one here is Grit. Melissa says he came to me, a really wonderful little puppy, but within the first year, he was slipping away. He did not feel well, his feet would bleed, and he had pimple-like sores on his torso. He was obsessed with licking urine and eating dirt, and he also lacked focus and hated it, being touched. He was very sensitive to touch. So we worked on things, figuring out what was going on first, and then implementing the strategy. And then he basically turned around, and he became the dog that Melissa knew he could be. And he was finally feeling great and also wanting to do things, and just, the dog that he could be. And then this here is Galen. He came to me after also having had a couple of years of diarrhea. And you can imagine a white dog with long coat with diarrhea. There's a lot of cleaning that goes into that. And so with Galen, we also worked the magic of restoring gut health, and he improved significantly. And Pamela said that I saved him from years of misery. And I want to just kind of pause here real quick, because the thing is, particularly in young animals, but really in all animals, if we don't really take care of the root of things and really go to the root of everything that's going on, then things will continue to go downhill. So if you have an animal that's suffering and you can't reverse that, and find the root cause and really have a good strategy to turn this around, they will continue to just go downhill and suffer more and more. And of course, you're going to suffer with them as well. And so today is really about helping you to understand what needs to be done to really turn this around, so they can have a happy, healthy life, and then, pass on when it's their time. So I want to start with a little bit of brain unclogging, because there's so much conflicting information out there. I'm sure you've noticed that, right? There are veterinarians who contradict each other. There are the research that you're finding in Google, everybody says something else. The Facebook groups with everybody giving their input, summits, articles, friends and friends of friends, etc. One person says you should do this, and the other person tells you should do the opposite. So it becomes extremely confusing. And almost every pet parent that I start to work with tells me that they have already done a ton of research to heal their pets, yet they still feel completely lost and have no idea where to start with the healing of their pets. So everything they've tried only gave them temporary, results or limited results, if any, or even made their pets worse. And some of you may also be paralyzed in fear because you've already tried a lot of things and some of these things backfired. So you're scared to try something else. And so that's what I want to do today. Today, I want to really provide you with a much needed clarity and foundational understanding to really uncomplicate things and bring clarity into all of that so that it's not so confusing. So I ask you to right now let go of everything that you know for just a little while so that I can show you a new way of thinking when it comes to healing your pets, no matter what symptoms they have. Okay, are you with me? Put a yes in the chat if you're on board here and ready to dive into a little bit of new thinking and a little bit of brain unclogging. Awesome. I get lots of thumbs up here, lots of yeses with you. Awesome, awesome. I'm really amazed. It's really amazing that you're so into this. So thank you. All right, so let's move on. So I want to start with this here. This is basically the old way of thinking, okay? We have an animal that has symptoms and you were given a pill by your veterinarian and the veterinarian told you that that should really help to heal your animal, right? Well, a slightly more modern way and potentially a little less damaging way is to offer a supplement or an herb for that ill. So we went from having a pill for an ill to now using a supplement and herb for an ill. But that really doesn't get to health because it's just covering up symptoms. And unfortunately, this whole system of using symptoms and putting Band-Aids on things has bled into the holistic field. Instead of drugs, now we are using supplements and herbs as Band-Aids. And I call this holistic medicine because this type of reasoning is not really working. And I know a lot of you have already experienced that. I hear a lot of people who have already gone to vets and holistic vets. And, that's not a judgment on any of my colleagues. We're all doing the best we can with what we know, and we're always learning. I'm certainly not perfect. In any case, this type of approach to healing doesn't work because, for example, if you have a pet that has diarrhea, what is your first thought? Is it what probiotic can I give my pet, or what yeast protocol can I use? Right? Those are kind of the thoughts that we have. Or if they have allergies, what shampoo should we use to wash them? That's a little bit of the approach that we're doing because we're kind of in a panic because our animals aren't feeling well. Unfortunately, though, this sort of approach doesn't really work because it is based on faulty logic and is not exploring the underlying cause of the issue. So the animals keep feeling not so great. So then what is the secret to healing and transforming your pet's life so they can experience this vibrant health and this boundless energy and joy? Well, you have to address the leaky gut and dysbiosis. And dysbiosis is basically the microbial imbalance inside the GI tract, because that is really at the root of almost every health issue your pets have, whether or not they show any kind of gut-related symptoms at all. So I'll show you how that's happening in just a second. But here you can see these are some of these organ systems that are affected by the gut microbiome. So we have a gut lung axis, we have a gut kidney axis, gut liver axis, gut bladder axis, even the anal glands, the skin, the pancreas, the heart, all the hormone glands, even the oral cavity, all of these are affected by what's happening in the gut and connected to that. And research is showing that there's almost no disease that doesn't have a gut component to it. So what diseases and symptoms do your animals have? Which of these organ systems are affected in your pets? Or are your pets simply just aging prematurely, because that can also be a sign of a microbiome not working as well as it should or being as healthy as it should? So today I want to show you how all of this connects, because that's very important. And by the end of this webinar, you will have an understanding of what is happening in your pet's body for disease and symptoms to manifest. And from there, it will then also become much more clear what it really takes to turn your pet's health around, okay, and where to start. So today we're going to talk about the 3 key principles, and they have the power to really reignite your pet's innate healing and transform their health in ways that you may not even have been able to imagine. And please don't believe this cat. This is not going to be a snooze fest, okay? So hold on to your chairs and have your pens ready. All right, so principle number 1 is that you have to understand leaky gut and dysbiosis to truly heal your pets, because it will give you a true understanding of how disease is created. And I know a lot of people are probably thinking, I already know everything about leaky gut, but please hang in, because I want to really explain how leaky gut is causing all of these issues that you see. And you cannot treat your pets successfully if you don't understand that, because the problem is that without addressing the gut and the microbiome, your animal's health will continue to go down the toilet. And if you don't know how to pull them out, no drug or natural supplement in the world will really create the change and the healing that you're looking for. But if you restore the gut of your pet and the microbiome, then the entire body and every cell of the body can start to heal and function as nature intended. So let me explain this whole leaky gut situation. I know, again, that a lot of people know much about leaky gut, but I want to really go a little bit more into details, because that will make a lot of sense and why this is such an important aspect of the healing process. So this is a schematic of the gut lining. So there's just one layer of cells that is basically separating the inside of what is, where the food basically is, and then the other side where the blood supply is that absorbs all of these nutrients. So there's just one layer of cells. And on the left side here, you can see that these cells are really closely connected. So there's no space between them. That's what a healthy gut lining has to look like. But on the right side here, you can see that there are spaces between the cells. And sometimes it's just they're separating a little bit, but sometimes they're completely separated off. And so that's where the issue arises. Because particles can go through into the other side. And so we call this leaky gut, we call that increased permeability of the intestines. So now what causes this separation of cells? Well, we can have stress that contributes to it, toxins, food particles, if they're sensitive to certain foods. We can have issues with drugs, with pathogens, and then also organ malfunction can also contribute to that. So these things can either directly affect the gut lining, like glyphosate, for example, a toxin that's sprayed, on all kinds of crops. It basically directly affects these connections between these individual cells and loosens them up. Or it can also happen through damaging the microbiome. And that then also results in inflammation, which then breaks apart these junctions between the cells. So this kind of leakage then leads to all sorts of issues that I want to elaborate on, because that is really what is going to, make you understand a little bit more of what's happening in your body, in your animal's body, and well, I should say your bodies as well, because we all live in the same world and we have similar issues. So with leaky gut, we have nutrient malabsorption. We have particles that are going through these spaces that are not properly digested. So you may have a little chunk of chicken that goes through and goes to the other side. But because it's not broken down sufficiently, the cells of the body don't really know what to do with it. And so they are really useless to nourish muscles and build muscles and organs and cells. And as a result of that, you end up with systemic inflammation, because these particles that aren't used properly, they're kind of sitting there and just clogging up the space. And so they have to be removed. So the garbage people are being called on. And does anyone know what the garbage collectors are in the body? Well, if you guessed it, it's the immune system. So anytime there's some stuff laying around that shouldn't be there, the immune system comes running and tries to clean things up. And when the immune system is being activated, what happens? We have inflammation, right? So that's what's happening. And because these particles are not just staying there, some of them get absorbed into the system, some of the toxins are getting absorbed into the system, and they go everywhere. via the blood supply, via the lymph system. And so then the immune system everywhere has to start, fighting these and cleaning them up. And so as a result, we then have systemic inflammation. So that's how it happens that, the kidneys, the liver, the lungs, the skin, the ears, the mouth, the anal glands, all of these things get affected because whatever happens in the gut goes systemic. And I should also mention that the gut lining is sitting right on top of the immune system. So on the other side of that gut lining, where the arrows end, that's where the immune system is. And 70 to 80% of the entire body's immune system is right there. So if you have this influx of toxins and things that aren't supposed to be there, you're basically stimulating 70 to 80% of the body's immune system to overreact, and that's never a good thing. And so as a result of this systemic inflammation, we have all of these symptoms that then show up in organs. And in addition to systemic inflammation, we can also have autoimmunity that is being triggered by this gut inflammation, because these particles, for example, gluten, looks very similar to what the thyroid gland is made of. And so if the body is reacting to something in the gut, like this gluten protein that we can find in wheat, barley, and all kinds of other cereal or grains, then this gluten gets attacked by the immune system, and the immune system makes memory cells. And these memory cells, they kind of float around the blood and they go everywhere. They're basically surveying things. And so they kind of swim by the thyroid gland. And they're like, well, wait a minute, this actually looks exactly the same as what I just attacked in the gut. That must mean I need to clean this up. So they start to clean up the thyroid. And what happens? Animals can get autoimmune thyroiditis as a result, where their thyroid levels are going to be plummeting because the thyroid gland is being disrupted and broken down. But it's not just the thyroid, it's everywhere, because when we have this continuous stimulation of the immune system, it really affects how it responds to a lot of things, because the immune system, once it takes care of something, it's supposed to sort of turn off the inflammation. So for example, if you cut yourself somewhere, you have inflammation until that area is fully healed, and then there's no more inflammation. But what happens when we have this leaky gut and dysbiosis happening, the inflammation never turns off. And so the inflammation itself then becomes toxic as a result. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, all right. And then obviously we can also have food intolerance, because when the immune system recognizes a particle, like chicken, for example, that was not broken down properly, it will be on high alert to kind of make sure to check what's coming down the holes, down the stomach and the intestines. And so if another piece of chicken shows up, the immune system is already ready and starts to attack it. And in the process, it will cause more damage to the gut lining as well, and also the microbiome in there. So that's how food intolerance starts. And food intolerance can either manifest in diarrhea or vomiting, but it can also show up in hot spots. That's a very common one. And then also recurrent ear infections are very typical of food intolerance. So food intolerance is not just gut symptoms, it can be other symptoms as well. And then last but not least, we also have a breach of the blood-brain barrier that happens when we have leaky gut, because the blood-brain barrier basically protects the brain from having things get into the brain that aren't supposed to be there. And that barrier looks very similar to the barrier that you see right here in the gut. And there are other barriers in other areas of the body. There's a barrier in the lungs so that things from the air can't just indiscriminately get into the system. There's a barrier in the bladder. There's a barrier in the kidneys. There's a barrier in the mouth. So there are a lot of barriers everywhere. And so when we have inflammation in one of these barriers, like the gut lining, then it causes all kinds of issues in other barriers, and they start to leak as well, causing more issues as a result. So having inflammation in the brain obviously is never a good thing, because that then can lead to degenerative conditions such as cognitive dysfunction and also other types of neurologic issues. And we know in humans that, the research has shown that people who have Alzheimer's, their brain deterioration starts decades before the first signs of dementia or Alzheimer's actually occur. So that's why it's so important to start early on in life with making sure that we don't have this chronic inflammation going on that is caused through by the leaky gut. So you can see now how this is affecting pretty much everything and how detrimental that really is to the system. So leaky gut was one part, but microbiome is also very important and plays a very important role in the body's overall health. And we should have guessed that because, there are lots and lots of microbes in and around our animals. In fact, they outnumber the body's cell by a factor of 10, and genetically they outnumber the body by a factor of 150. So who do you think is in charge here? Who is running the show, right? So it's definitely the microbes. They play a huge role because they directly interact with the gut lining. So they also help to prevent leaky gut if they're in the right balance. They also interact directly with the immune system, and that is particularly important for young animals because the gut microbiome, all of these gut microbes, they basically train the immune system to recognize what is safe and what is not safe. So they train the immune system to recognize that chicken is safe, beef is safe, food is safe, particles that are floating in the air are safe. So they're basically training the immune system to not overreact to things that are present everywhere, so that basically the immune system doesn't overreact to life. And so that is crucial for young animals that we pay close attention to that, because when their microbiome is off and they have leaky gut early on in life, we basically set them up for a life of overactive immune system. And then the microbiome is also interacting directly with the nervous system. And again, going back to young animals, these microbes play a critical role in the development of the brain and how the brain is functioning. And so it's again critical that we take care of the gut microbiome and the gut lining early on in life and don't insult it too much, which is often happening. Puppies have Giardia, they get a bunch of vaccines, they get a bunch of dewormers, other kinds of antibiotics if something is going on, and that all can set them up for a life of difficulty for sure. And so these microbes in the gut, they're like a huge chemical factory. So they produce chemicals or biochemical compounds that the body needs in order to be able to function properly. And these compounds, they support, again, the intestinal maturation. So they help the whole intestinal tract to mature properly, including the immune system. They also inhibit pathogen overgrowth. So if we have salmonella, for example, that gets in, they will just take care of that, no problem at all. They will just get kicked out. The microbes also help to digest the food. They also help with regulation of hormones and excreting of toxins. So you can see they do a lot of things. They also produce vitamins and other healing compounds and make neurotransmitters and regulate behavior. So wouldn't you say that your animals sort of need these little buggers, right? So this whole being sterile and clean and all of that, it has not really been working out all that well because we really need these microbes and we need them in good diversity. So just to give you an analogy, can you picture the opening ceremony of the Olympics, with all the amazing performances and the athletes that are representing their nations? I remember a few years ago, I think it was Beijing, they had this incredible presentation. It was amazing. They had thousands of people who were participating in that. And all of these people knew exactly what they needed to do. They had their function and they did it at the exact right time with each other. So there was a lot of communication happening as well. And so it was just really incredible. So now picture that same thing with only spectators. So nobody else, no performers, no athletes, nothing. You only have the spectators. And these spectators are rather aggressive and a little bit rude. So what does that basically mean? Well, chaos will ensue, right? And nothing good will come of that. And that's basically what's happening in the gut biome with the gut biome if it's imbalanced, if we don't have a lot of diversity, a lot of different, people who are doing all of the functions that they need to do. So if we don't have this really intricate system working in synergy and in harmony, we have a lot of issues, right? So that's basically what dysbiosis does. Then if we combine that with leaky gut, then you can imagine that the body is suffering even more as a result of it. And that's why gut issues create inflammation everywhere. And that may look like diarrhea, but it also may look just like arthritis or manifest in bad skin. And that leads me to principle number 2, which is that we have to heal the gut. We need to restore the gut lining. We need to restore the microbial community, because leaky gut and dysbiosis are like the big first domino. If you knock over that first domino, all of the other dominoes have no choice but to fall down as well. Okay, does that make sense so far? So we have the gut causing a lot of issues, and we need to heal the gut in order to make any kind of difference for our animals' health. Because as you just learned, and it's worth repeating, inflammation does not stay in the gut. It travels everywhere. And if you don't stop the presence and the progression of your pet's gut issues and start healing it, the resulting inflammation will end up compromising and gradually destroying all of the body's cells. And there comes a point where there's not a whole lot that you can do to reverse the damage. And other diseases will manifest because the body is just starting to break down more and more. In other words, not only will your pet and you, obviously as well, continue to suffer, but the suffering will increase. So it's that downward slope that I mentioned earlier. And you'll end up spending tons of money and do lots of research, spend hours and just be miserable together with your animals and have that heartbreak because you are not able to restore that. And that's exactly what happened with my childhood dog, Windy. She started out with some seasonal allergies that turned into year-round itchiness. Later on, she developed mammary tumors and then heart disease. And lastly, she ended up with dementia to the point where she would kind of get caught in a corner and had no idea how to get out of this. And mind you that her digestive system rarely had any kind of issues. But now that I know better, I know that her symptoms were basically screaming gut inflammation. But 40 years ago, I had no idea about all of that. So, but in any case, these are the animals that you think about, of what was and what you could have done differently. And I'm not saying that to make you feel bad or judge yourself, because we know what we know when we know it. That's just how it is. But still, these animals, they stay with us and help us to learn and grow some more. So to recap and emphasize what we talked about so far is that inflammation in the gut leads to cellular damage and dysfunction. So let's have a look at these cells. Let's take it back even further and simplify it even more, because that's where you're going to really understand what the solution then has to be. So what makes a cell a healthy cell? Well, it's basically a cell that works optimally and also in harmony with all of these other cells that are present in the body. So nutrients can get eaten easily just as they need to, and then whatever waste is being produced in the process can get out easily. So that's a healthy cell. Now then, what is an unhealthy cell? It's basically a cell that's not working in harmony and optimally. So only some of the nutrients may get in, or too many nutrients may get in, which also causes damage, or some of the waste can't get out, or the cells start to leak, which is also not ideal because, again, the immune system has to clean up the mess, right? So those are unhealthy cells. So if we know that disease is really the malfunction of cells, can't we then say that it's just one disease that we have? This is really crucial to understand, because if you get that, you already have won half the battle. And I'll let you in on a secret. Nobody in vet school was telling me that disease was malfunctioning of cells. Nobody was breaking it down to that level. And even today, still, doctors will try to confuse you with all kinds of fancy disease names. But what it really boils down to is that disease is a malfunctioning of cells. And so, for example, if you have the pancreas, that's, pancreatic cells that are malfunctioning, then we call that pancreatitis or diabetes. Or if the liver cells aren't functioning properly, we call that liver disease. Or if the kidney cells aren't functioning properly, we call that kidney disease, right? So every symptom that you see in your animal's body is really a sign that cells are malfunctioning, and each to a different degree. So obviously it starts with cells having a full battery and doing exactly what they need. And then over time, with that inflammation insult that comes from the gut, it will decrease in its ability to function, and eventually the battery will be drained. And drained cells that don't make any energy anymore or not capable of making energy properly, we call those cancer cells. So basically, if you understand that all diseases are malfunctioning of cells, then you sort of know what needs to be done, right? And so we really need to ask even more questions. And kids are really good at asking questions. They ask why. They ask you, well, why is the sky blue? And you try to explain that as best you can, with a little bit of physics that you may still have in your brain. And then they ask, well, but why? But why? They never stop. They keep asking why. And so we need to do that as well, because that's the only way that we can really turn our animal health around. So why are cells malfunctioning? What has to happen for the cell to not work properly? There are two main causes of that, and maybe you're guessing it already. One of those is deficiency, so the cell is not getting enough nutrients to be able to do and perform as it should and do what it needs to. And then the second one is excess, which in other words could be also toxicity. And that will start to bog down the cells to the point where they're just not working properly anymore. So if you're not feeding them properly and there's a lot of garbage in the cells, then they just can't work properly. So if we go back to the gut, because I want to reconnect that to the gut, if the processing of food and nutrients is poor, then the cells will not get what they need to function properly. Because the microbes in the gut, again, they play a critical role, because not only do they help to break down the food, but they also manufacture essential compounds and vitamins and neurotransmitters, etc. And this is basically the deficiency aspect as it relates back to the gut. Excess comes more from the leaky gut that allows all sorts of toxins to enter into the body uncontrolled, and that then interferes with cellular function as well. And as I mentioned earlier, inflammation itself also then becomes toxic, especially when it's going on chronically, because it never turns off. And inflammation at its most inflammatory state, it's breaking down things. And so if we have this constant breaking down of cells, you can imagine that they're going to malfunction a bit, particularly the cell membranes, what is surrounding the cells, on the insides of the cells. Those are getting more and more inflamed, and then as a result, things can't go in properly, waste can't come out as it should, and then you're just ending up with a cell that breaks down more and more. And so wouldn't you say that all of this that I've just explained to you is very logical information so far that we generally tend to use in all areas of life, right? We tend to ask why something is happening. For example, the car, if the car engine light comes on, we ask, well, why is that happening, right? We don't just put a piece of duct tape on it and then continue driving until it starts stuttering and stops in the middle of the road, right? And another example of this logic that we apply everywhere else is a plant, right? What is your first thought when you see a wilted plant like that? What might it be missing? And is it also possible that something is interfering? So it could be missing water, it could be missing sunshine, or it could be interfered by bugs, for example, or somebody could have potentially poured gasoline over it, right? So this is like the logical thinking that we apply with a lot of different things in life. But when it comes to health and medicine, that logic sort of goes out the window. So going back to this logic and really employing this logic will get you a lot further than if you don't use that. And so the deficiency and all of this excess of chemicals and toxins that are also floating around, they then call the cells to malfunction. And it's a little bit like a bucket that overflows, causing inflammation, and that then shows up in all of these different symptoms here, you know, cognitive dysfunction, anxiety, aggression, joint pain, organ failure, weight gain, allergies, hormone dysregulation, etc. So all of these things will then start to show up when that bucket is overflowing. And it's very challenging not to have a bucket that overflows nowadays, because we live in a world that is has rather become toxic, as you probably are aware. For example, since World War II, we have 1.5 million new chemicals that have come on the market, and most of these are carcinogenic. And 80,000 of these toxins actually interfere with hormones, and that's why we see so much hormonal issues these days. And what's happening too is that the toxins are passed on from generation to generation. So 4 generations of toxins are being passed along. So if your puppy or kitten's great-grandmother had toxins, these toxins are going to show up in your puppy or your kitten. And from an epigenetic perspective, which means, you know, well, epigenetics is basically the science where we explore how things affect genetic expression. So toxins and nutrients, they can all turn on or turn off genes. And so if there have been toxins present, you know, generations past, these genetic expressions will then also be transmitted from generation to generation, as well 4 generations along. So we have epigenetic changes. And that's why everybody is getting sicker earlier in life, because not only because of that passing along, but also because we are exposed to so many toxins. As you can see here on this graph here, it'll come up, I'll show you. You can see that there's been a huge increase in chemicals used, organic synthetic chemicals that are being sprayed. So in the 1940s, it was about less than a million kilograms per year. And by the 2000s, it's gone up to 200 plus billion. So that's an incredible increase, and the body is not really equipped to deal with all of that onslaught of toxins. And I remember a podcast I was listening to by a doctor, and he basically said that way back when, humans were exposed to this much chemicals and toxins in their lifetime. So let's say you have an 80-year-old person, they have this much toxins in their entire lifetime. Nowadays, we are exposed to the same amount of toxins every single month. So every single month, we are getting exposed to a lifetime of toxins. So that's basically what we're dealing with right now. So it's really no surprise that all of these animals are having such incredible issues these days. And so we need to do a whole lot more just to stay healthy. So just staying healthy is a bit of an uphill battle. But the good news is that the bodies of our pets are amazing healing machines. They want to heal, and they also know how to heal. And so you just have to give them what they need, what these cells need, and remove whatever is interfering with the cells so that they can all start to work better again. And if you're healing the gut and the cells, you're also healing allergies, behavior issues, etc., all at the same time. So remember the fecal transplant that I did on that German Shepherd, whose poop normalized, his anxiety went away, he lost weight to be, where it needs to be. He had more energy. He also had a little sore on his nose that resolved. I mean, everything kind of changed all at the same time. So healing the cells, healing the gut will heal the entire body. So then you don't have to pay too much attention to all of these other symptoms. Of course, if your animal is being tortured and is very, is in pain or itching like crazy, you want to also address the symptoms a bit to give them some relief so that the body can get a break and really heal. But if you're really focusing on healing the cells, healing the gut, healing the microbiome, then everything, the entire body can start to heal, because you're basically turning on that innate healing capacity that the body had. So again, I want to ask, is there a drug or a supplement that can do that? Right? Not really. So now that we've answered what is going on, which is basically, we know what's going on is that the cells are malfunctioning. And we know why they're malfunctioning, and that's because of leaky gut and dysbiosis that then leads to deficiency and excess. We can then finally ask, well, how do we fix the body, right? So we have to answer all of these questions first before we can go to the how. We can't just take a symptom and say, okay, what do I do to fix that symptom? We have to figure out all of these other things first so that we understand, because now that we understand all of that, we can actually create a plan of action that makes sense and is not just like a wild goose chase, or, you know, a chicken running around with its head chopped off, which, you know, we humans tend to do because we want to have instant healing of our animals. All right, so how do we do this? That actually brings us to principle number 3. We have to use a systematic approach, because equipped with that little logic, we can now talk about that key principle of having a plan and designing a plan, because you have to have a well thought out plan to heal the gut and create cellular health if you want to have true and also accelerated healing. Because this is like building a house. Without a plan, you'll end up with a bit of a wonky situation like this, or no house at all. In my, if it was up to me, I probably would just end up with a pile of lumber. Looking back at my health journey in the beginning, you know, for like 9.5 years or so, I had no systematic approach when I had chronic fatigue and autoimmune issues. I was just trying this for a good while and then trying that for a good while. I mean, I gave everything a really good chance, but I didn't have a systematic approach, and it obviously didn't work. And if I had had a systematic approach back then, I would have healed maybe in 6 months. I would have been back to myself. But, you know, it was a good learning opportunity to explore a lot of things. But the problem with our animals is that they don't have 10 years of time, because their lives are so much shorter than ours. And if you don't have a plan, you're basically prolonging your pet's suffering and also wasting precious time and money. So we really have to look at the whole body and use a system to address the body as a whole. And so this is my 7 pillars of health strategy. That's what I figured out, you know, through this long journey of getting back to health. And so I use this for my patients as well, and have for, you know, the past decade or so. And each of these pillars is really critical to restoring health, because as Aristotle says, the whole is greater than the sum of its part. So we start with providing a species appropriate balanced diet that's composed of fresh and minimally processed foods that contain the nutrients that the cell needs. And with that, you start to refill these holes of deficiency, which will then allow the cells to have more energy and function better. And at the same time, you also diminish the intake of potentially toxic compounds that, you know, are put in the food and come with food and damage your pet's cells. And that will really enhance the energy and the function. And because obviously the gut is the limiting factor when it comes to utilizing food, because, you know, if you can give all the best food possible, but if the gut cannot assimilate it, you know, break it down first and then take it in, it's not going anywhere, and all you're creating is basically expensive poop. So we do have to address the gut from the get-go, and I use the 5R approach for that. So the first R is we want to remove stressors such as offending foods, toxins, and also address any kind of chronic infections that may be present. And then we want to work on adding back essential digestive aids such as enzymes, apple cider vinegar if they don't produce enough acid, so that the gut is more capable of breaking down and assimilating nutrients. And then next, after that, we want to re-inoculate the gut in order to restore the microbiome. And my preferred version of that is to do fecal transplants, but certainly prebiotics and certain probiotics can help as well. But if you're looking, if you're understanding how many microbes are in the gut and all of these different compounds they make, you can understand that using fecal transplants is going to be 1,000 times more potent than using probiotics, because you have all of these different microbes. There are thousands of different species of microbes in the gut. There are bacteriophages in there that are the viruses that also help to modulate everything. So they play a huge role as well. And then you have all of the nutrients and compounds that these microbes make that are also being used when you do a fecal transplant. And those are the postbiotics, basically. I call it the poop of the microbes because they make all these good things. So you can see that using fecal transplants is going to be much more potent than a probiotic that has maybe, if you're lucky, 10 species of microbes that are already dead and not even the right kind. So we want to re-inoculate. So I talked about that. And then we also want to repair the gut lining. So we want to give nourishing compounds that help heal the gut lining. And that can be done through foods and supplements. For example, bone broth can be very helpful because it has a lot of good nutrients. It has collagen in it, and all of these things can help with the healing of the gut lining. Omega-3s can help with that as well. L-glutamine is another one that's very well known for gut healing, for the lining itself. Licorice, slippery elm can help to protect. So there are a lot of different compounds that can help assist that. And then last but not least, we also want to rebalance and manage stress, because when we have a lot of stress going on, we are not in a healing mode. We're not in a digestive mode. I'm sure you guys have experienced that. You're kind of eating on the run, and then all of a sudden, your food is kind of sitting there and it's not being digested properly because you were in such a fight or flight sympathetic overdrive that, the gut was not getting any kind of blood supply because it was all going to the muscles and other areas of the body. And so we need to manage stress so that we can rebalance and get more into a parasympathetic state, which is the rest, relax, heal, digest type of mode. And we have to do that not just for ourselves, but certainly for our animals, because when we're stressed, they're stressed as well because they pick up on all of that. So we need to kind of do a little bit of whatever it takes to kind of calm ourselves down and relax a little bit. And I know that is particularly difficult in this day and age, but we need to try. So that's the gut aspect of that systematic approach that I'm talking about, the 7 pillars. So we looked at diet and gut. And then we also want to look at the other pillars because they're equally important in the process. And so we need to do a little bit of detoxification as well. And that makes sense, right? After you've learned about all these chemicals and toxins that are everywhere. So we need to support the body in the detoxification process. And that needs to be something that's kind of ongoing, that we do all the time. But we want to make sure that the diet is in place and the digestive system is healthy, because we want to make sure that these chemicals, this waste, really gets out of the system, and that the cells are actually capable of dealing with that. So we don't want to do that right away. We want to make sure that diet and digestive system are in place. And then we also need to make sure that the communication systems are working properly, because we all know, right, that when communication breaks down, things are not going so well. And so the 2 communication systems that we have in the body, and there's obviously a whole lot more communication, on the side, but the main ones are the nervous system and the hormones. So the nerves, they provide electrical impulses that tell the cells what they need to do. And the hormones do the same thing, but through chemicals. So they have chemicals, hormones are basically chemical compounds that do the same. They attach to the cell membrane, to the receptors on the cell membrane, and then cause the cell to do something as a result. And the electrical inputs into the cells kind of do the same thing. They also tell the cells what they need to do. And so if we have cell membranes that are damaged, then you can see that the receptors are most likely going to be damaged as well. So then when you have hormones that want to attach to these receptors to then tell the cell what to do, it's not working because there's no receptor to attach to. So you may end up having an animal that has normal hormone levels, but because the receptors at the cell level are missing or destroyed or just damaged, then the cells cannot do what they need to do. And that's why a lot of times when animals and humans too, when they go to the doctor, they get blood work, and then the doctor says, well, everything's normal. And you look like you're healthy as a horse on the lab results, but you or your animals are still not feeling good, and you're kind of at a loss because you don't know where to go from there. So anyway, so we need to address these communication systems because they're critical for optimized function of the body. And then we also need to make sure that we combine that with exercise. And I know, particularly as an ingrained couch potato, I tend to kind of cringe at that word. I have to make myself exercise. But exercise is really critical because it brings more oxygen into the system and into the cells. And oxygen is necessary for mitochondria to be able to function and do what they need to do, and for the whole cell then to be able to function properly. And so when we have more oxygen, it actually makes more mitochondria so that then the cells have more energy and they can function better as a result. But of course, exercise is also critical for mental health because it can really make them really happy when you go for walks. At least my dogs, they've always been really happy when I brought out the leash and they're like, oh, yay, we're going somewhere. And it's obviously also very relaxing for us. Well, I guess it depends. If you have a dog that lunges at everything, it may be a little different, but it can be very, very healthy and healing on many, many levels. And then lastly, we also need to address mental and emotional wellness, especially nowadays where the world is, the world and our own stress level is kind of at an all-time high. Because we are at an accelerated rate or phase of change and evolution. So everything is really sped up, and everybody's stuff is up. Everybody's fears are coming up. There's a lot of disruption that's happening, and so the stress level is quite high. So we need to work on that as well, because as I mentioned earlier, our animals are really picking up on that, and that also kind of diminishes their ability to be healthy. And, I saw a perfect example of that just a few months ago, where mental and emotional health was addressed in a roundabout way or indirect way, but it certainly showed in the animals. And what had happened is this client of mine had some changes in the house where somebody's medication had been adjusted. And as a result of that, that had really calmed down everything. And her dogs were completely different when I saw them. One of them, who used to be, tied, close to the owner all the time, basically glued to her and very shy. He was just walking around the room, wagging his tail, exploring things, like he was at home. And the other one was also completely changed. She would let me examine her much more easily without, trying to hide from me. So it was a really incredible transformation that I saw just from this little bit of change inside the household and really bringing more peace into the household. So it makes a huge difference to the animals, for sure. So when we utilize this well-rounded system that I just shared with you, we basically have a game changer in our hands. Sick cells are revived or eliminated. We have organs that regenerate, and the entire body can heal as a result, because we're feeding all of the cells at the same time. We're relieving all of these cells of the waste all at the same time by restoring things. And so why it may not have worked for you, the healing process that you've had for your animals may have been that you only tried a few of these pillars at one time. And if you didn't do them in the right order and you left out 4 of the pillars, that's why your pets may still be sick, because that's what happened to me, right? I only used 1 pillar at a time. I got nowhere until I started integrating everything. Because healing is really no different than baking a cake. If I say, here's how to bake a cake, I give you a recipe and you leave out 4 ingredients, is that cake going to be turning out well? Probably not. I mean, if you're lucky, you're going to get, whatever's in this picture, but most likely you won't even get that. And so if you can't even bake a cake like that, how can you heal a body, right? You simply can't. Because healing is really, again, no different. And when we only use one of these pillars, and I see a lot of people only use diets to fix their animals. Obviously, nutrition is really important. We cannot diet our pets out of, poor health, because only looking at nutrition is like trying to build a house that's made of only one wall. And that just simply is not a house, right? So you have to consider that there are other important aspects to healing the gut and the entire body. And so to summarize, the key to success is you have to cut through all of the noise and figure out exactly what's going on with your pet's body before you can ask, how can I heal them? And then once you know that, you can finally come up with a plan to maximize their health. And often when we try to fix our pets, it's really easy to lose sight of these core principles that truly make a difference. So again, imagine another example. Imagine that you're trying to furnish a house, but you have zero idea what the house looks like. It may be a mansion, or maybe it's just a little tiny house. So it's really impossible to get the right furniture for that house if you don't know what it is. And so same with healing, you have to have a strong foundational understanding of what's happening with your pet's body. So, and effectively sift through all the noise and focusing then on what genuinely will work to help heal your pet. Right? Does that make sense? So just because you've already tried a lot of things, don't think this isn't for you. Or maybe you've already tried everything, and because it didn't work, that there is no hope. This is for you because you're really close, and obviously you're here for a reason today. So I invite you to take the next step with me if that's of interest to you. I'll help you figure out what your pet needs to heal the gut, regenerate the cells, and everything else. I want to help you. And you will start to see a reduction in their symptoms, and ultimately they will be able to reach their maximal health potential. So whatever their body is capable of doing from where they are, you'll be able to get that. And there is still time for that, obviously, but I don't recommend waiting, because if you don't take action now, you're not going to get the life that you want for your pets, because they, again, don't have years for you to wade through a jungle of information on your own. And I have to say that nowadays things are getting more and more complicated. And even for us veterinarians, it becomes more and more challenging to help these animals. So, I highly recommend getting the help that you need and work with someone. Learning about health is just like learning to fly a plane. Right? Would you do this on your own by watching some YouTube video or asking someone on Facebook? Well, I certainly hope not, because that could be a little bit detrimental for not just you, but for everyone around if your plane crashes. And the same is really true for healing. And as doctors, it is our duty to teach you, because doctor means teacher in Latin. And healing gets easier and is much faster with a mentor who can guide you and also, show you the way. And I certainly wished I had someone like that back then, because I spent so much money on trying to figure things out that it would have been easier to just hire somebody who knew what they were doing. And so I've been there, I've been where you've been. I've learned to fly. And I've had success with my own body, thankfully, and also with a lot of animals that have overcome a variety of conditions with my healing protocol. So this isn't just a generic approach. This is precision medicine, as I call it, because it's tailored uniquely to your pet. So even though the 7 pillars are going to be there for everyone, how they're put together and what is used in the different pillars is going to be a little bit different for each animal based on their needs. Because what your pet needs is different what another pet will need. And that's why I call this precision medicine. It gives your pet a specific plan for their situation. And with that plan of action, your pet then can move towards more optimal health. Okay, so we will create a tailored plan together because that's where transformation truly happens. And I'm here to guide you every step of the way if you desire to have that help. Because this is much better than quick fixes. Because with this approach, you're really restoring and renewing every single cell of the body from the foundation up and really creating true healing. So imagine your dog or cat being vibrant and full of energy like this dog, where like the joy just kind of emanates out of its face. How great would that be? How would that make you feel? Put some, the first word that comes to your mind, put that in the chat. Let me know how that would be for you guys, if you could see that with your animals. What do you see? Things like snuggling with your pet, spending some time outside together, going to the beach, seeing your cats run around. Yeah, accomplished, thrilled, love, elated, relieved, amazing, heaven. Yeah, exactly. And I want that for you, and it is possible. It is possible. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you. I so appreciate you guys. I appreciate your excitement, and I want you to have all the joy in the world with your animals. All right, so now some of you may be thinking, well, this sounds really great, but I'm really overwhelmed and I don't know where to start. Or you may already have been there and tried everything. I know it's been very difficult for many of you because I talk to a lot of you pet parents out there, and it breaks my heart to see the difficulties that you're going through. And I really, really would like to help you with your animals so that you can have these feelings of elation and heaven and love and relief. And so what I created is a special invitation for you. If you'd like my help, the first place that we need to start with is a face-to-face, so that I can determine whether or not I can help you, and also, see if my program is a good fit for you. And so to do that, I've created a special consultation process for you. And in this consultation, we will uncover the why behind your pet's struggles and then peel back the layers to find what's been missing. And ultimately come up with a plan of action to help restore that function to their body. Are you ready to take this step forward and accelerate your pet's health? Give me a ready in the chat if you are, because now's the time, right? All right, I see some readies. You've already signed up for the invitation. Absolutely ready, yes, with exclamation marks. Amazing. That's so good, because I want to share that with you. The more ready you are and the more you do for your animals, the more you're actually changing the entire world. Because you may think that you just have one pet and you're not affecting everything, but you're like a piece of the puzzle, and the more pieces of the puzzle we can put together and elevate, it's going to elevate the entire world, and you'll see, within a few years, things are going to be so different for all of us here. I so appreciate you being excited about this and willing, because you're the ones that are making the difference here. This is what we'll do together. You'll start by filling out a detailed health assessment questionnaire that includes symptoms of your animal, tests that you did, treatments that you've done, and also the outcome of these things. And then with this, you're basically giving me the keys to unlock the mysteries of your pet's health. So it'll show me, what's been done and what may be missing. And then we will get on a Zoom call for a one-on-one call so that we can really dive deep into the heart of your pet's health issues. Because understanding every detail of their story and their current challenges, from symptoms and tests and all of that, we can then really uncover what's underneath and see what needs to be done in order to help them. So on this call, you will get a truly holistic vet, me, to evaluate your pets and your situation and listen exactly what's been going on with them. Okay, and then from there, we will create a plan to accelerate your pet's healing so that they can really go to where you want them to go. And normally the value for this consultation process is $4.95, but today you can get started for only $27, because I want to make this a possibility for you so that you can really take this opportunity and explore this with me and see if this makes sense to you. I invite you to take this opportunity if you feel called to, and if it feels the right thing for you. I want you to know this is not just another consultation. This is really a chance for you to transform your pets and your life and also your future together. And at the end of the call, you'll really have an outline of the path to health so that your pet can feel good again naturally. The goal of this consultation is really to find kind of the heartbeat of things, whether that's stopping chronic GI symptoms, putting an end to allergies, or any other chronic condition, or if you just simply want to enhance your pet's quality of life so that you can go on hikes with your dogs, play with your cat, or just relax for a cuddle with them. There are a lot of pet parents here with me tonight, and my schedule can only handle a limited number of calls. So I recommend that if this sounds like the right thing for you, don't hesitate and get that consultation now. And I will actually put the link in the chat if I can find the chat somewhere. Here we go. All right, so here it is. So just click on that link and it will lead you to the order page so that you can schedule your consultation. If you're ready to commit and move forward with their health. Let's get started and I will help you with a plan to move forward with their health, okay? Because there's really no need for you to go around in circles and trying to figure this out on your own and spend every free minute, researching how to fix your pets and spend a gazillion dollars like I did for my own health. Because it's not necessary. Nobody has to reinvent the wheel. Plus, it's really not very good quality of life for you if you have to do that. Because when I talk to pet parents, oftentimes I find that their quality of life is actually worse than the quality of life of their pets because they are doing, all this worrying. Just like this woman here. I've already climbed this mountain here, so let me help you. Let me help you figure out the fastest way to maximizing your pet's health. I really want to show you the roadmap. And I'm here to walk this journey with you because I've been there and I want you to have this joy and peace for your animals, just like Michelle with her dog, Rex. Rex was suffering from food sensitivities. He was having seasonal allergies and he was starting to kind of get a little bit old. And Michelle said that getting on the call and joining the Pet Health Accelerator program was the best decision she's made for Rex and the entire pack. Digestive issues resolved, allergies went away, and overall, all of her dogs became a lot happier and healthier. And she also says that it was such a wonderful experience to find like-minded people to share ideas and information with, which is part of my program, to have community and to have a safe space to ask questions and have discussions. I love the Q&A sessions and always learn something new from the other members as well. And most of all, the guidance and support from Dr. Suter has been invaluable, and I'm incredibly grateful to have found her and this program. It's been life-changing. And so I will talk to you more about the program in the consultation as well, just so that you have an idea of how we can move forward together if that's what you want. But in any case, with the consultation, you'll walk away with knowing what it's going to take to really turn your animal's health around. And then I obviously don't want to forget our cat friends. So this here is Nico. You can see some before and after pictures. And this is Mary who talked about him.
Because of how sick he got and how he ended up in the hospital, and he was not having very good quality of life. He had sores all over his body. He had inflamed ears. He was in pain, and I think that we tried everything that we could through conventional, medicine, and we needed to find I knew that there had to be a more holistic, like a natural way, a different approach that was going to fix him. And if what you were offering wasn't going to fix him, I didn't think anything would. So he has responded so well. He has no sores on his body. His ears are so much better. He's playing. He's normal. I mean, he's doing really, really well. And you saved him because he almost died a couple of times. When we first came to you, he had been in the hospital a few times. And we wouldn't have known about his allergies. We would have been continuing to give him the same thing. So I really thank you for helping him. The classes did help too. And not just for him, but for us too, to learn about detox and nutrition and all of those things and all of that. So the whole program was really helpful for everybody. So thank you.
Nico, he had had long-term pancreatitis issues, so he had ended up in the hospital several times because his pancreas was just flaring up with inflammation and was very painful. And he also had bright red ears. He was constantly scratching his face, and you can also see his abdomen. He had this big red blotch there, and a lot of hair was missing because he was constantly licking himself. And so we figured out that he had food sensitivities on also hormonal imbalances. And then by restoring all of that, he started to look much better and feel better. He had good energy. He was basically a normal cat again. So it goes for cats just as much as for dogs, obviously. And if you have your own health issues, you may also be learning something in the process as well. She applied some of the principles that she had learned in the program to herself and her family, and they were also experiencing better health. But of course, I'm not advocating that I'm helping people with their health because I'm not a human doctor. So are you ready to take this next step with me? After you heard about Rex and Galen and Lulu and Grit and Jill's dogs and Nico, are you ready to move forward to a healthier future with your animals? So again, this is what we'll do, what we get started with on this journey. And the link again is in the chat, because you have to kind of understand that what we're doing here and what we're talking about here is not to just heal what's happening now. It's also to prevent further health issues down the road. So this is to help make your animals really resilient to whatever life is throwing at them. And this is obviously for you too, because when you're dealing with a sick pet, as you know, it affects every area of your life, including your own health, your social life, your ability to go out. Obviously, money-wise, it's quite detrimental. And with all these animals getting sick so early in life, you're ending up with a patient rather than having the dog or the cat that you were looking forward to spending your life with. And obviously, that doesn't mean you don't like them or love them, I should say, but it can be taxing and exhausting, sleepless nights and all. So it's important to really also consider yourself in that whole equation. You might think that, well, my pet's problems aren't really that bad. It's just a little soft stool or a little bit of allergy. But there really is not such a thing of just a little bit of symptoms, because every symptom is basically just the tip of the iceberg that you're seeing, and you don't see what's underneath. And so we need to get underneath and really, remove that iceberg so that these tips don't keep showing up. So this is for you. And I know most pet parents need that for their pets. We live in a world that's harder and harder to stay healthy. So having this good education and training and having someone show you the way empowers you so that you then can move forward on your own more so to really know what needs to be done and really have the results that you're looking for. So again, click the link in the chat to schedule your call today if that feels like the right next step for you. And let's take that next step together, because this here won't really get you the results that you're looking for, right? I mean, it's all nice and comfortable, but you have to take action if you want to change your pet's health. And by scheduling the call with me, you have nothing to lose, because if you don't like it, if you didn't like it, you didn't feel like you were getting anything out of it, you can get your money back, no questions asked. But the only way for you to really know if this is right for you and for your furry companions is to get started now and get on that call with me. All right, so this is what you get. And then if you click the link in the chat, I will try to find the chat again. It disappeared on me again. So that you can see. Yeah, there's no code, Paula. If you go to the link, you'll see it's just the $27. So no problems there. All right, so are you guys blown away? Is your brain, I hope I got your brain unclogged a bit. I know that was a lot of information, but I really hope that it would kind of, pull out some of that useless information that you may have had and made some space for a bit more logic. And you don't have to worry, because you'll be able to have access to this replay if you want to watch it again, because I know, again, it was quite packed with information, and I want you to be able to rewatch this at your own leisure, and so that you can really take all of this in. All right, so okay. So now I want to go into the Q&A part of this. So if you have questions, please post them in the comments, and I will go through them as I see them. So Christy is asking, which hormone tests can we do specifically for sex hormones? So there's the University of Tennessee. They have testing for sex hormones, so progesterone, testosterone, estrogen, etc. So that would be the place to go to if you want to check sex hormones. And then, oh, thank you, iPhone. I don't know who that is, but this information was absolutely whole and logical truth. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much for saying that. All right. Thank you so much. And then Alice, looks like the site will schedule the appointment. Do you want a history first? Just follow the directions, click on the link and then follow the directions. It's all explained very easily. So you don't have to worry. It will go take you step through step. And if there's any issues at all, just shoot me an email. It's vet@odettesuter.com if you run into any issues, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Let me just put it in there, my email real quick. There we go. And here's the link again for anyone who needs it. All right. Okay, so let me scroll back up. What's the best and most effective probiotic you may recommend? Well, how would you answer that question, Sally, after having listened to the 5 R's? What do you think my answer would be? I think you probably know. So fecal transplant would be my way to go. Because you want to reestablish a good microbiome. Because the thing with probiotics is that they only have a limited amount of species of microbes, and they're not even the species that are native to the GI tract. So you're basically putting something in there that really isn't what needs to be there, and only a few species. And that's a little bit like, the monocultures that we see, all these cornfields where you see them kind of go on endlessly. So that's basically what you would be doing with a probiotic. So I would recommend doing fecal transplants. That's much more effective. You get much more bang for your buck. And when you're actually reestablishing that balance, you don't have to continuously give probiotics. And on top of that, animals, they sniff around everywhere. They get a lot of microbial input that way as well, by rolling around in the dirt, licking themselves and all of that. So again, I'm not a fan of probiotics. I stopped selling and using probiotics about 8 years ago because first off, I didn't really see a whole lot of difference with these probiotics. And also the probiotics sometimes were making things worse. So if you already have an imbalance in the microbiome and you're feeding the wrong side of the imbalance, then you actually can make things worse. So again, I'm more into really figuring out what the microbiome looks like. So do some testing with Animal Biome, for example. They do biome testing and then restore the microbiome based on these results that you get. Okay. All right, so let me move on here. Signed up and scheduled with you, Clarissa. Well, awesome. I can't wait to talk to you. Thank you so much. And then Liz, so appreciate you bringing this comprehensive understanding of healing. Beautiful presentation. Oh, thank you so much, Liz. Appreciate it. Thanks for your feedback. iPhone, I have a 15-year-old corgi girl. Can this be beneficial for her? Definitely. I mean, as long as they're alive, there are always things that we can do, but certainly with an older animal, it's a little bit more limited in the sense that they're, okay, there's a follow-up question. Can it be beneficial? I have instinctively followed the 7 pillars, and she's been healed of gut inflammation and immune-mediated IBD. Yeah, I mean, there's always more that we can do for our animals, but in general, obviously younger animals are going to be responding a little faster than older animals because they still have more energy, they have a little more to go. So with older animals, it's always a little bit more challenging, but we can always do a lot to just improve their quality of life and just enhance whatever is there so that whatever is there can really work as best as possible. I hope that makes sense. And then Linda, how does the gut affect kidney issues in a cat? She likely has IBD and chronic kidney disease. Yeah, so the gut microbes, they play a role in eliminating some of these toxic compounds out of the system and break some of these down, which can then make it easier for the kidneys themselves. And when we have inflammation in the gut, as I mentioned earlier, that gut barrier, when that's inflamed, we have all kinds of other barriers that get inflamed too. And that includes some of these barriers in the kidneys that are, supposed to process, reabsorb, release things, depending on what is needed. And so when that is not happening well, and some of the toxins can't get out as well, like ammonia, for example, has to go out through the kidneys, to a larger extent. And so that can then affect, the kidneys. So basically the inflammation in the gut will affect the kidneys because there's such a close connection between the two. And then Carrie, are we too far gone to reverse things at 12 years old for the seniors? Our main symptom is reflux and occasional soft stool. He had a history of worms as a pup when we rescued him, and a few rounds of antibiotics over the years. We feed gently cooked and some commercial raw and snacks of raw goat milk. Yeah, so again, as I mentioned earlier, it works for any age, but how far we can get, that's always the question. But 12 is not that old. I mean, it depends a little bit on the breed, obviously. If you have a Great Dane, it'd be on the older side for sure. But as long as they're still alive, there's hope. And so I would have to basically chat with you, get a little bit more information, and get a sense for your for your senior, and see if I feel like I can help. I would definitely let you know that. All right, so Marilyn, our pet really has no health issues. He's 4.5. What would your conversation entail? So we would look at what may be going on. So a lot of what I do also includes testing for deficiencies and toxicities. And most animals have some toxicity and deficiency in their system. So there is some work that we could do on that level just to kind of up level the goodness that he already has. I mean, it sounds like you're already doing a lot of good things for your pet. So the conversation would be just to kind of see, where you're at, what the challenges are, what you'd like to see improve, what your goals are and such. Okay. And then Karen, if raw feeding only, is raw feeding only what you recommend? Well, it depends. The goal is always to go to feeding them to what they're basically exposed to in nature, what nature would be providing for them. So the closer we can get to that, the better. But there are a lot of animals nowadays that have a really hard time processing food. And so we have to go slowly with them. So if they need a lightly cooked food or some special diet, and in the process, we increase their gut health and their gut function, and then we can slowly start to also adjust the up level the diet basically. So I'm not rigid that way, but certainly I'm not a fan of kibble, dry foods that way, and things that are high in carbohydrates, because they just fuel the inflammation. But if an animal does well on like a hydrolyzed food, then we would start to work on the gut and healing the gut, so that then eventually we can get the animal off the hydrolyzed food and onto something that is going to be more supportive to the cells. But of course, we don't want to rattle the cage so much that the animal, completely loses its balance and goes downhill. We don't want that. So we want to just slowly inch our way, to better health. And I do have a lot of experience with these kinds of things, because nowadays the animals that I see are much more sensitive to everything. So, you used to be able to just change the diet cold turkey, and nowadays you do that with a dog and they're sick for like months. So we have to be much more careful, because again, there's so much more toxicity. The animals are, the bodies are much more burdened and functioning much more poorly in that sense, and so they're much more sensitive, and we have to go slowly with these animals. But slow and steady wins the race, right? And then Alice, what is a fecal transplant? Oh, good question. So a fecal transplant is basically where we take poop from a healthy donor dog, so a dog that's completely healthy, has a good microbiome, so a good microbial community in the gut. So we take that poop and we transplant it into the unhealthy animal. And that can be done rectally with a little tube, which is really no big deal for an animals, because some people are like all kind of, oh God, but if your animal can tolerate a thermometer, they can tolerate a rectal fecal transplant. But there are also companies who are making capsules that are basically have a little bit of fecal, freeze-dried fecal material in it. And then you can also do it orally. So you would give that on a daily basis. And it doesn't smell bad or anything like that. I know there's a little bit of a gross factor, but in any case, that's what fecal transplants are. And as a result, you're basically reestablishing a good microbial flora in the gut with this donor material that you're putting in there. And I've seen a lot of good results with that, like the German Shepherd that I mentioned earlier, who basically after one fecal transplant rectally, his poop went from liquid to firm, basically in just a few days. So it can be very potent that way. Linda, when you say fecal transplant, is the one from Animal Biome a good one? Yeah, that's usually what I use. Certainly, yeah, I can recommend that. And then Sharon, oh, Dr. Suter is an angel for our fur babies. Oh, you're so sweet, Sharon. Thank you for saying that. She has helped tremendously already with helping my boxer baby get on a healthier track. Yeah, yeah. I love working with you, Sharon, and with Cameron. All right, and then Kimberly, how can you test the microbiome for leaky gut? So leaky gut is one thing that you can test for. So there are some tests that will check certain markers of inflammation that are specific to the gut and will kind of imply that there's some gut inflammation and leakage going on. And then the microbiome is a different test. So that actually tests the microbial flora in the gut. So those are two different types of tests, and both are available. One through Animal Biome, which would be microbiome testing, and then Innovative Pet Labs, they have something, a test where they check for leaky gut. All right, so Melissa, how do you feel about Gut Restore by Animal Biome for cats? Yeah, I like them. They're a high quality company. They they do a lot of what should I call it? Quality control is what I was trying to say. They do a lot of testing of the fecal material, so they're getting tested regularly, so that there's the least amount of risk for your animal to catch something from the donor dog, and they are very stringent with their requirements for donor animals. I don't remember how many they check every year, but I think only about, I don't remember if it was 1% or 10% of the ones that they test actually become donors. So they test so many animals, but a lot, they have very high standards of who can become a donor. And as soon as something is a little bit off with these donor animals, which would be showing up in the microbiome, they're out of the program. They're no longer in there. So Kathleen, do you have recommendation for who to get a fecal transplant from? So if you're wanting to do a rectal fecal transplant, you're going to have to find a veterinarian who's willing to do that. Again, it's not rocket science. It's just a little tube you stick up their little bumsicle and then you squeeze it in because it's reconstituted with saline, the powder, and then it goes in that way. It's really kind of like doing an enema, and every veterinarian knows how to do an enema. So it's not rocket science. So you just have to figure that, figure out who wants to do that. If you don't know who's in your area, you can always contact Animal Biome to find out who they're selling the powder to, because that would be somebody who would do rectal transplants, a veterinarian who would do that. So you could always ask them as well. And then the fecal transplant from Dr. Roman, Touch of Life, or 30 years protected legacy biome cells. Yes. Do you recommend fecal capsules as a regular probiotic regime? That's Judy Wayne. Since you mentioned it as like a postbiotic, there's also postbiotic on the market. What's your opinion on those postbiotics on the market? Certainly you can use it as a probiotic, but I don't know that it's necessary. But for example, puppies and kittens, I will always send them home with fecal capsules because I don't know where they've been. I don't know what their biome looks like. And as I mentioned, it's particularly important to fix the microbiome in these, or make sure that they have a microbiome that's balanced in these young animals, because these microbes have such huge functions in training the immune system and the nervous system, and also gut maturation. So I usually do that. But once they're balanced, I will just have them recheck them on a regular, like annual basis or so, and then provide more fecal capsules as is necessary. Or, for example, if they went through a stressful situation, maybe giving a few after that. Or, for example, if you're giving heartworm preventative, maybe wait a few days and then give a few capsules afterwards just to replenish, just in case the ivermectin or whatever drug is in there, like if it's Interceptor or whatever drug you're using, so that you can restore that microbiome right after, or after they had surgery, dental, or like a stressful situation, or you moved somewhere else. All of these things can affect the microbiome. Diet change can affect it as well. So if you do a diet change, if you went from kibble to something else, you may want to wait maybe a couple weeks or so before you do any kind of fecal transplant, because you want the microbiome to get used to the new food, like the existing microbiome, and then you want to start adding a little bit additional at that point. Postbiotics, yeah, there are postbiotics out there, but it's a little bit like prebiotics. A little bit like probiotics, because you're never going to be able to mimic what the gut microbes can produce, because they produce so many compounds that are, helping the system. So it's not just one or two, and oftentimes in these postbiotics, that's all it is. It's just one or two, and that's not to say that they can't be helpful. But it certainly wouldn't be the same, potency-wise. And then we have Paula. Paid for consultation, didn't get the time. I'm not sure what you mean. Just send me an email, Paula, if there's any issue. You should have been able to get to a page where you could have picked the schedule, picked something on my schedule there. So I'm not sure what happened. Just shoot me an email if you can't figure it out. And then iPhone 5. Oh yeah, about the Cordy makes sense. He's very vibrant and healthy, thank God. Well, that's awesome. That's always good. We want that. All right, where was I? Okay, so Karen, would the gut biome influence copper storage disease? Potentially, it could help. I don't know. I'd have to do a bit more research on that to give you answers, but the microbiome of the gut will certainly help the liver in general in its function. Whether it would be able to get rid of some of that copper and help, to eliminate that, I'm not sure. That probably would take a little bit more than just doing, restoring the biome itself, but also additionally adding some other aspects of these 7 pillars to, remove that copper out of the system, or diminish it at least. And then, thank you so much. And Andrea, my dog was diagnosed with B12 and folate deficiencies and was put on B12 and B6. Her B12 is now normal, but folate is still low. I had her on various probiotics and other things. I also used to use soothing herbs like marshmallow, etc. Her morning stool is normal, but becomes looser during the day. Yeah, so when there is an imbalance of B12 and B6, folate, in the small intestine, that usually indicates that there's an imbalance in the microbiome. So in humans, we call that SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. In animals, dogs and cats, we can't really use that term because there are a lot of healthy dogs and cats that have overgrowth of microbes. So they have a lot of microbes in the small intestine, and they're still healthy while others have less. So generally, small intestine will have less microbes and the large intestine will have a lot more. So most likely, in these animals that have, these deficiencies of minerals, of vitamins, or imbalances of vitamins, it just indicates that there's something going on in the small intestine. Most likely it's more of an imbalance than anything else, and some inflammation as well. And then we have Laura here. Can puppies snack on, sorry, my mouse isn't working. Can puppies snack on raw bone 3 months old? Yeah, they certainly can. You just need to make sure that it's soft, because these puppy teeth are rather soft and they can wear down, which then would, potentially damage the tooth that's coming underneath, the adult tooth. So you want to make sure that it's soft and that it's not, maybe that it has some meat around it, to kind of take a little bit of the pressure, but definitely no, antlers. I mean, I don't recommend those anyways even for adults. They're way too hard. So make sure it's really soft, because these puppy teeth are relatively soft. And Alice, appointment scheduled. Yay! I look forward to talking to you. And then you have a question: can these fecal transplant capsules be purchased online or Amazon? They can be purchased directly from Animal Biome. I don't know if they're selling it through Amazon as well, but certainly directly from them. I'm personally not a huge fan of ordering things from Amazon, anything that goes in or around the body, just because you never really know what you're getting, because there have been situations where people have basically opened up things, put something else in it, and then sold it, as something else. So you never quite know what you're getting. So with Amazon, it's a bit of a gamble that way, and in my opinion, not really worth it. Sally, what are your thoughts on feeding chicken as part of a raw diet? So many people believe it's a problematic protein. Well, it very much depends. Obviously, if it's like, chickens that have been running around outside and eating the food that they are supposed to eat, they're going to be less inflammatory to the system. And, I'm just a big believer of variety. If an animal can handle it, the more variety they can get, the better. So I don't think that feeding a little bit of chicken here and there is going to be a huge problem. I mean, I eat a little bit of chicken here and there too, not every day, but I do as well. So it's just a matter of of diversity, I think. And then Judy Wayne, when will the consult link expire? Well, right now I have my schedule open for a couple of weeks. So that's how far I'm scheduling out right now. And then if I have a lot of people who are joining the program, I want to make sure that I really have the ability to fully focus on their needs and what they need. So I may be closing down for a little while, just to make sure that I can really give it my all, because you deserve it, and I want to make a big difference for those of you who signed up. If you're wanting to move forward, I wouldn't wait. And then, what brand of probiotics do you like? I think I answered that question earlier. If we do fecal transplant, Kathleen, with gut restore capsules for cats, do we need to give 30 or 60 days? So that very much depends on the imbalance of the microbiome. So I usually start with 30 days and then recheck and then see where we're at and then continue from there. So if there's not been a huge amount of difference, I would probably go longer afterwards, just to really work on that, and really kind of establish that good microbiome. But it depends, it depends on the animal and how well they respond, basically. And with cats too, cats, they don't really like to have things shoved down their throats. So it depends a little bit too on how well they handle things. But certainly we want to try to make sure we restore the microbiome. And then Alice, I set up an appointment with my 9-year-old with allergies, but my 2-year-old German Shepherd will get spayed in 2 weeks. Should I look to fecal transplant capsules for her after surgery? Yeah, certainly that's a good idea. And, when we talk about spaying and such, I don't know how much research you've done, but there's a lot of more new research that's coming out basically indicating that spaying and neutering can have huge effects on the system because it really creates a significant hormone imbalance as a result of removing the gonads. And so I would say, make sure that before you, remove these ovaries, just make sure that you really do your research so that you're aware of what that may lead to potentially, because there is a risk of, when we remove the hormonal glands, there's research showing that they're much more prone to cancer, allergies, inflammation, immune issues, behavior issues, incontinence, all sorts of things, injuries. Did I mention that? Cruciate ligament tears and so on. So I would highly recommend that you do the research before you just go and have the ovaries removed. There's also an ovary sparing spay that can be done where you just remove the uterus, but you leave the ovaries in, and that will then remove the risk of pyometra. So then you don't have that, because that's a little bit more of a risk with females that are not spayed. But yeah, I would say, do your research. If you feel like you need a bit more time, you can always reschedule. I mean, I don't know what your situation is, but I would just recommend doing some research first before you really make that final decision, because unfortunately, hormone glands cannot be, re-implanted. It doesn't work that way. And then iPhone, does restoring the microbiome and healing leaky gut help with musculoskeletal issues like IVDD? Yes, it can help with that. Obviously, if the problem is already there, it may be a little bit different. But in any case, anything that you do in the microbiome, to restore the microbiome and fix the leaky gut will decrease the inflammation in the system, and that will also decrease the inflammation in the area where the issue with the IVDD is. So it will decrease all of that inflammation. So it can help with joint issues, joint inflammation. It can help with, better mobility, having more flexibility and such. So it can definitely make a huge difference. And I remember from when I was working with horses, we had a lot of horses that had GI ulcers and also leaky gut, basically. And how that would manifest in a lot of these horses was that they were very stiff. So they had very poor mobility in the spine. The spine was very rigid. They had a lot of tension in the muscles. And so when you have that going on because of that gut inflammation, that will affect dogs as well. Because, for example, if my gut is a little bit off, I can also feel it in my back. It gets all tense. So definitely from that perspective, it can have influence on the spine as well. And then Paula, okay, I sent you a message, okay, to my email. Okay, great. Thank you, Paula. I will respond to that later. And then Kimberly, thank you, have to run. All right. Very good. And then Lisa, would resetting the gut help with my German Shepherd's firework anxiety? It can certainly help, but there are other factors that play a role in that too, including other hormones, for example, and then also what was the trauma that came with it, and it certainly will help, because the more calm the gut is, the more it will influence the brain, because all of these microbes in the gut, they produce happy neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, and so on. And so it can definitely decrease the anxiety. But is it going to be enough to completely resolve firework anxiety? I don't know, but certainly it will help. It will contribute, but there's probably some counter conditioning and desensitization that you'll have to do at the same time. But there are certainly some components. I just recently read an account of a dog who had hormonal imbalance because he had been neutered. and he had very low testosterone, high estrogen, and they rebalanced out his hormones, and he also had a lot of noise phobias, and that completely resolved for him, just because of the hormone rebalancing. So there are so many factors that play a role with everything, and that's why I use these 7 pillars of health, because there are so many factors that contribute to everything. So we really need to, look at all of them and address all of them to get the most out of everything. Does that make sense? And then Linda, thank you. You're welcome. And Yvette, in Europe, I have a 19-year-old relative, well, good health, relatively back problems and shoulder problems, sludge to the gallbladder, seems to start having incontinence. Would it be worth it to book an appointment with you? I mean, certainly you can try. I mean, there are certainly things that would have to be done locally, with physical therapy, chiropractic, acupuncture, and those types of things to keep your 19-year-old feeling better. But there's always something that we can do, and I'd be more than happy to explore that with you if you want to book an appointment, and then I can tell you what I think. I'd have to obviously know a little bit more, but good for you for having a 19-year-old who's in good health. Relatively, that's awesome. And then Corey, for the consult, do I need vet records? No, you just have to fill out the questionnaire or the assessment form. That's going to be enough. So just put a lot of information in there. And then Judy Van, I have a friend whose dog is having kidney stage 2 to 3. Do you think doing fecal capsules can help to support it? Yeah, it never hurts. It never hurts. And then, let's see, oh, there we go. What omega-3s do you like? iPhone 6. I like omega-3s that are animal-based. So the ones, from fish, but it has to be good quality, wild caught. You have to make sure that they test for mercury and other kinds of toxins. So those are usually good. Algae oil works as well, krill oil. There's squid oil available as well. So there are a lot of different omega-3s available, but just make sure it's good quality. Make sure you stick it in the refrigerator once the bottle is open, and only buy a bottle that's small enough so that it's used up within 3 months. So you don't want to buy a huge jug that will last you 3 years, because it will oxidize and become rancid, and then that will all get implanted into the cell membranes, because these omega-3s, they also get stuck into the cell membranes because they're a part of those, they're a constituent of cell membranes. And so if you have rancid oils that go into the cell membranes, then that will impair the function and the health of these cell membranes as well. And then iPhone, hooray, thank you, Dr. Suter, for answering my question positively about healing IBDD. Yeah, there's a lot that can be done. I love chiropractic work. I do a lot of that for animals that have spinal issues with really good results. Acupuncture works really well as well. And then other types of rehab things, laser, red light therapy, then all of the underwater treadmill and other types of exercises they do. All of these things can be very positive for healing IBDD. Yvette, thank you. You're welcome. And then Lisa, yes, thank you. We'll probably book an appointment. He also has allergies. Okay, yeah, that's definitely a good reason to get on a call with me. And then iPhone 6, any recommendations for glandulars, brands? I know there's Standard Process. They have glandulars for males and female dogs. I think, yeah. And then there are others. You just have to kind of research it. It's like Ancestral something or other. I can't remember the brand name now. They have some as well. So you just have to kind of look around to find them, and just make sure it's like from good sources, grass-fed animals type of thing. Alice, I received a receipt, but where do I find the assessment to complete before our consultation? So once you schedule it, you should get access to the form. If not, you should be receiving an email with a link in it as well. to get to it. And otherwise, if there's any issues with it, just send me an email and I will help you out. I'm just posting it here again, bbm.com. All right, and then just the link again if anybody still needs that. And then we're kind of getting to the end of the questions. What are your comments on TCVM? Well, there's a lot to say about TCVM. So do you have any specific question about TCVM, Kit? And then Corey, where's the health form? Yeah, again, if you have a problem, send me an email. But once you schedule, you should actually go directly into the health form from there. So you place your order, and then you get to a scheduling page, and then from there you get to the form, I think. Yeah, that's how it works. All right, Alice, thank you. Gotta go. All right, got it. Okay. All right, so it looks like we are at the end of the questions. It was so nice to be here with you guys. Thank you for your interest and for your excitement, for your passion for your animals, for your love, your commitment to them, to change and grow with them and help them and all. It's just really amazing. It just kind of warms my heart so much to have people around and know people like all of you. It's just so amazing. So thank you so much for being here and for listening in. And I look forward to speaking with some of you. And if it's not now, maybe later. So whatever is right for you. I'm here to help, and I love you guys all, and thank you so much. All right, have a wonderful evening, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye, and thank you.